Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton here with Brandon. Gameplay for the Hololive English deck that showed up on the channel earlier this week. The Kali level 1 into the Gura level 3. Brandon, you're on Danmachi.
Yeah, I am. Uh, Figured it would be a deck that's pretty generic to be able to kind of see some of the things your deck can do.
Yeah, so the object of the game with the Hololive deck in this case is obviously you're trying to get the Gura to pop off, getting the extra stock with the Ame, etc., etc. But you're doing it with only Hololive English characters, and every Hololive English character is represented in the deck.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm playing the standard Danmachi list. This is the Salvage Pants, the Bell into the Hestia.
So Hololive doesn't love level 0, I've found. At least this package doesn't. You've got a couple of good plussing zeros in the English specific list, and I think that kind of solves that problem a little bit. The coin flip is good. The oversized Kiara is pretty good. So you've got a couple of options for beating bigger stuff on the board, because you don't have as many other options in zero. Like you don't have the fixing and the milling zeros outside of the level 0 Ame that you do in other Hololive lists. So while the utility is probably better long term than the power, it is nice to be able to have, it's nice to open at, the first turn of the game with something that feels good to put on the board right away.
Sure, and that makes a lot of sense. Like being able to have a little bit more flexibility with that when you have the full open list makes a lot more sense. But being able to just kind of play into the necessary profiles for especially what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to restrict your building a little bit to try to play a little bit more flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It playing out this way, you have decent profiles still, right? Because you have the ability to bounce back into hand, so you're getting those pluses. It's just not the selective pluses that you will like to see.
Yep, and that's supposed to proc at the beginning of your draw phase, but I kept forgetting about it, so procced it later. Didn't go off, but
yeah, I mean, as long as you get it before the attack phase on this end, for me, it doesn't really change my strategy a whole lot.
But yeah, this deck handles level 0, I think, a little bit better than the mainline list. Just because stuff like the Rene and the Lammy kind of feel bad to slam on the board. Because they're not very big, they don't win board cross turn, and you have to pay for the Lammy effect. So it's a little more stock intensive. Whereas here, I'm at level 1 now and I have 3 stock. But yeah, starting here, this is really where, like, your goal at 0 is to fix as best you can for the level 1, so that you can just use the level 1 to cascade into the 2, to then move into the 3. It's very, it's a step ladder kind of a deck. Goes from one thing to the next. And it's really hard to interrupt. Like, you can't really disrupt the Kali combo. It's really hard to shut off the Ames because they just get really big. So it's pretty easy to at least pick your lanes with those. I'm also a big fan of the Crony CX swap in the back row, because that started this turn, or this main phase rather, in my clock. So I was able to pick it up, swapping the Gura to go get it, which allowed me to then ditch the CX to go get a second copy of Kali. Like, that's just really nice little synergy there. You're playing enough blue that it works.
I really like those kind of shift effects to be able to kind of get those pieces that you would want to have out of clock and just kind of exchanging it with something that's in hand already. So yeah, I really like that kind of ability, especially on those kind of tech pieces, right? Because that really allows you to be able to adapt to the situation that you're given to try to get the best out of it. Yeah.
Well, you can also then, when you clock that from your hand, it's, you essentially haven't reduced your hand size, because it's in your hand effectively when it's sitting there in the clock until the end of your main phase, or until the until the beginning of your main phase is passed. So if you draw into something else that you want to switch it out with the shift, that's really nice. Or even if you don't, if you just have a target in hand, then you like, for me, it was the Gura. Like, I don't need a Gura right now. I can put it in a clock, go get that. And then what's going to end up happening is the Gura's going to be in waiting room, probably, when I refresh here.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives me my waiting room access off of, like, my Iris.
No, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense to me. So I get the double brainstorm here because I want to try to filter out the climax that's still in my deck, which I do here. So I'm able to actually filter out those 2 climaxes before refresh because of the draw ditch effect off of the brainstorms from playing the event. So I'm actually going to refresh like fine here. 7 out of 31 isn't terrible.
No, it could be worse.
It definitely can. Especially with the ability to effectively mill through my deck with the torch events. Like, I could try to speed through a little bit more readily.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, you're only going to clear over one of the Callies because the on attack the power from the waiting room procs when you attack.
Yeah.
So the other one's going to be a power tie, but still.
I could have played the event to guarantee the power condition for the other one, but I didn't want to spend the stock that early, only because I was unsure what that stock would look like on the following turn.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if I might need to kind of double... I could potentially need to double Brainstorm on the following turn. I'd rather save the stock for that. So, like...
Yeah, especially now.
Conceding the lane, which still power ties it.
Yeah.
Was I think, fine enough on my end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I understand wanting to hold on to the stock, especially because you did just, you refreshed a CX and you triggered immediately. So now you're like 5 out of 28, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because Callie basically has perfect fixing, I'm able to go and get both of my Ames, but I got rushed to 2-6, so I don't want to use my Ames right now. I hit 3 on the Brainstorm because I certainly didn't cancel, but I'm gonna have enough stock. I'm gonna have 7 stock after this, 8 if I hit a choice, so that gives me enough to at least double Gura. So my goal here is to get my second Gura, get my level 3 Callie into hand, so that if I hit a choice, I can double Gura with the Callie, and that's still a pretty effective finishing turn. And that's without the Ame. Like, I didn't do a single Ame, and I'm going to have at least 7, if not 8 stock. If I had Ame'd, I would have, 10, 12 stock.
Yeah. But you're also, because you're also staying at 2-6, though, it's like that's just more of a reach of what I would have to do to kind of get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, at this point, I'm also like 2-3, so I can't really effectively go into combo turn here.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like the debate you have here for a second, is like debating, do you actually want to push me closer to 3 to try to heal back down and try to get some extra damage off, or...
Well, you kind of always assume that you have a soul trigger when you're in Hololive at this point. So it's like, do I want to push him to 2-5 so that he could, clock and Ricky into 3? My compression isn't great. I'm only 3 out of 13. So I opt to side here, planning on triggering. I don't trigger, so now you're just at 2-3, so it's like, okay, I guess it's going to be, it's going to be that much harder for me to close next turn. But I do have double Gura up, so I'm basically ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Grab the only target off the torch. Draw a ditch. Mill another 4. Do end up doing double brainstorm because of the trying to pay out both CXs here.
Mm-hmm.
Able to search 2.
Yeah, but you got to a pretty good spot here. Like, the deck speed on Danmachi is actually really nice.
Oh yeah, I can effectively refresh my deck every turn.
Feels like you're playing Fate again. And I think that's the most effective thing to do against Gura is just compress down. Like, because at the end of the day, Gura still does need to swing.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to eat some of the 2s. You're going to eat some of the 1s. Best bet is to make sure you cancel the 3s and 4s.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at here with this being 7 out of 25 on my next deck. Like 24 now with the Salvage. But it'll be 25 because I have to ditch back down to it. So it's like... Still 7 out of 25 is still decently solid. I don't like the free point of damage on top of deck going into a Gura turn. But... Still, I'm able to at least able to present things here. Depending on how where you swing with your Guras, I could also potentially do the fun play of playing the torch to bounce my event Hestia in the front row into stock and mill through that next card on the top of the deck. Because I know it is not a climax. So I could potentially like finesse my way through. That is a play that I could make here. I elect not to do that play, but it's definitely a play that I could do here.
Yeah, I was thinking about dropping that Cali down, but I would need to trigger a choice, and I drew a choice, so there's only one choice in those 7 cards. I don't love my odds of triggering a choice in the first 2 attacks. I don't want to give up a second Gura in order to try to potentially be too greedy to try to get a Cali lane as well.
Well, and see, because you do the Gura first here, now is when I could, before that last climax was like before where I could have actually like played the torch for the first time. Because of the burns happened before the counter step.
Yep.
So I didn't actually have access to that play.
Yeah, I wanted
But had you swung with the off lane first, that would have been the play.
Yeah, I was thinking about swinging with the off lane first, but I wanted to, if I could stick the 2, push you into 3-0, more or less guaranteed. I felt good about that. And then I get to present not quite lethal, because I don't trigger on the last swing. So now I'm at 3-6. And basically, if Gura doesn't close, Gura's dead.
Yeah.
Because at that point, your compression is miserable. Like, yeah. So it's really hard to, as the Gura player, win after Gura doesn't finish. You have healed down to 3-0 or 3-1 probably, but that doesn't matter anymore. Because I think I'm like 6 out of 37 here. So even though you don't have CX, you're still presenting 2-2-3. And I just don't have the cancels in deck to deal with it, I don't think.
Yeah.
Interesting that you opted not to just drop the off CX.
Well,
just to push the damage.
I thought about it. I also was like, if I have the direct lane, and then I also have potential to trigger here. Like I actually still have a decent number of soul triggers in deck. So it's like, because I have the climax in deck still, right? So like that's what I was trying to get into here. That's kind of still what I'm trying to get into here, is trying to get into the CX. So I was like, okay, if I can try to play into because realistically I don't need any extra cards outside of the CX. By playing the torch here, I don't have any cards in hand left, so it's not going to actually make a difference. Like, from the draw ditch, I'm like, if I can get down to the draw ditch and just play the CX, that was the play.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have mattered if I had the climax in hand or not, because I was just trying to get the other one. But I also know that if, because an example, Soul Trigger would have been enough to close the game here. So like the direct lane for 3, and then potential for 3 in the other lanes. So like it was a potential double lethal situation, if not just a single time at lethal. So it was just more of trying to get that situation in place so I had the best chance of it. And I figured the cancel burn was the best chance.
Yeah, but I think that makes a lot of sense. But that's it. Thanks for joining us. We will be back on Tuesday with a Clock Talk. We'll be back the following Thursday with 5 cards, 5 minutes. Overlord deck tech the following week, and gameplay for that in 2 weeks. Until next time, thank you for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one.